So what's it like for you sitting next to this man who was once a part of an organization that meant harm for your father in particular?
The word that describes it for me is redeeming. One of the principles of nonviolence is unearned suffering is redemptive. What my father sacrificed his life for is what brought this possibility into being. And so, you know, I obviously grew up in a household of love, unconditional love. And what he's speaking to is a deficit of that. That's why he found a home there, because he was looking for a place to belong and to be embraced. And the reason he could end up there is the same reason some of our black kids end up in gangs. There's a deficit of unconditional love surrounding people. And so my answer to Bakari would say they get that kind of hate so deep in their heart because there's a deficit there. And you know, when people say you can literally love the hate out of people, it can happen. I was dangerously close like my father because of an experience he had early on as a teenager. He won this oratorical contest down in Dublin, Georgia, when he was 15 years of age. And on his way back, they had to stop through some town. And because the bus was crowded, he had to give up his seat to a white person. And that angered him. And it caused him to be very close to hating all white people. Imagine if Dr. King had let that lie resident in his heart. But because he continued to be surrounded by people who unconditionally loved him and his family, in the community that he grew up in, that hate could not blossom. Same thing for me. You know, losing my father at 5, my uncle mysteriously found in his swimming pool, did not drown, is a great swimmer. My grandmother being shot in the church by a deranged man when I was 11, so 5, 6, and 11. As a young child, I was destined to have a lot of anger, rage, bitterness, and maybe even hate. And so by the time I was 16 into my teenage years and my early 20s, I really started hating white people, but more especially white men. And I remember one day, and these are little simple things, may not make sense to the average person, but simple things. I remember one day I was invited as a minister at this point on the James Robeson show. He's a Christian minister, pastor. And in the middle of the show, talking about some of my experience and the pain from my father's assassination and all of the other tragedies, he just stopped in the middle of the show and said, "Can I hug you?" And for me, that was the most healing moment in my life, because it started melting away some of that hate that I had in my heart. And then following that, I was traveling different places, and I would get ready to put my coat on a plane, and a white gentleman would reach up and say, "Let me help you with that." It gave me a different perspective. And so we have to find a way in this nation, and I heard my sister earlier, there's a lot of hurt, rightfully so. There's a long history of violation in this country, especially against Native Americans and African Americans. But I know we can't keep going forward with all of the hate and the hostility and the pain and the hurt. And I was not earlier blaming a victim. What I was saying is all of us have to find a way to hear the other. I heard this all night. Listen, I heard things like intentional, as Pastor Jensen said. There's some things we have to be very intentional about. We were intentional about doing this tonight. We're doing this again in other kind of forms, other kind of settings, because we have to be intentional to get beyond this place. Love is going to triumph in the end. Daddy said, in the end, unconditional love and unarmed truth are going to win. That's the only way. So truth and love together.
Now we must act. Use the hashtag #Let'sBridge. We welcome your donations to the King Center on our Facebook page or dreamforwardfund.org. That's dreamforwardfund.org. We also give special thanks to our sponsor, the AIDS Healthcare Foundation. Special thanks to our partner, the Martin Luther King Jr. Advisory Council. Let's bridge young people this summer with Camp Now. For more information, visit us at choosenonviolence.org.